corporations of the modern day, their story began humbly. The founder of what would grow into the Ochtan Corporation, Edwin Basler, started his company with his wife, Ara, after finding a miraculously huge swath of oil in their birth state of Germany while on vacation. However, as both of their families had fled to New York City shortly after the World War, they decided to found their company as a union venture and signed the deal with the German state to buy the land. While officially an American company, all important procedures stayed close to the fields in Germany. Once they scored their first cargo ship's worth of oil, they decided to sell every last drop to gain the capital necessary to begin supplying airports with refined petrol and drilling in the ocean, entering them into the international oil race. With these moves, companies like Shell and Exxon, as well as oil exporters from the recently formed Arabian state, began to consider Ochtan a rival. Basler was not deterred, however. He continued his growth of oil production until a certain hobby of his began to curtail his capitalistic ambition: racing. In 1975, Ochtan bought the rights to become a secondary supplier of Lagosto Grand Prix petrol, alongside Shell. Although this sparked a rivalry between the two companies, it ended in Ochtan's race to buy up as many ocean oil sites as possible. With Basler's new interest in both sport and the business of racing, he began to take his personal millions to buy sole advertising rights to several racers, growing from a several hundred millionaire to a less than $1 millionaire in the process. Despite the seemingly idiotic move in the eyes of investors and other companies, it actually had the unintended effect of being amazing advertising for their company. As their racers won race after race, cup after cup, the public clambered into Ochtan stations, believing their petrol to be the best in the market. The company, as Basler lost his control of the board, began to play into this and advertise themselves as the gas of the greatest racers, opening up more gas stations across Germany, America, and Japan, the state that produced the cars Ochtan logos were painted on. As the century came to a close, the big three oil tycoons, Shell, Exxon, and Ochtan, controlled nearly the entire oil market. Despite this, several complications arose for those three as oil returns stagnated with the onset of the early Holocene extinction. Ochtan took the changing world as a sign to find a renewable oil substitute or find other ways to keep their company going in the event of oil crisis. And so began Ochtan Energy. In leagues with several car producers such as Chithya, Ochtan began to brand themselves as an eco-friendly icon of a company. Chithya's developments will be covered later, but Ochtan began to construct hundreds of wind turbines and begin research on how to create liquid biofuel. In the meantime, Ochtan introduced electric carports into the majority of their former petrol-only stations. In 2023, their first line of plant-based biofuels compatible with petrol cars were introduced. Its cheaper costs both for the consumers and Ochtan made the biofuel industry the nail in the coffin for the dying oil industry. By 2023, all oil companies, big and small, were dead or had moved on. Ochtan's fervor for innovation wasn't cured, however. The carbon-hydrogen crisis of the 1950s was controlled in part by Ochtan donating to smaller companies invested in fusion refineries and creating small-scale biofuel reactors for towns and early arcologies. Soon after, Ochtan partnered with Imperial scientists to turn unusable food crop yields and plant waste into usable biofuel. This led to the Green Box and Green Pit projects being launched, supplying extra energy and fuel to people worldwide. Ochtan even had a limited application of Green Box technology sent in initial colonization efforts, allowing those not born on Ancuna to have an Ochtan presence in their life. The magnetic revolution and the last 70-odd years since haven't provided Ochtan with much more than ways to refit and modernize existing technology. Ochtan's biofuels and good name allowed them to partner with many spacefaring companies: Magnetron, Anixitron, Over the Moon. Those liquid fuel partnerships allowed Ochtan to idly profit off their partner's success for decades. In regards to the Red Winter's War, although biofuel technologies similar to Ochtan's green projects were present in several consortium synths and robots, Ochtan's officials have denied partnerships with any consortium company other than Blackstron. Luckily, however, cleanup efforts and robot synth rehabilitation centers were set up by the company after the war's end, all of which run at no profit. Even the use of rehabilitated consortium fueler drones stays regulated to donation, cleanup, or internal use. Despite the many hardships faced by humanity, Ochtan has long served as a beacon for ethics, altruism, and lack of destructive greed for citizens of the Empire. Hopefully they'll continue to be a beacon in the years to come.